pray. Our gracious and most heavenly Father, we come to you to thank you for this day, a gift that you have given us. Let us not take that for granted. We ask that you be with those who do not have a warm place to be right now through the cold and the rainy days that we've had. A gift it is that we have warm homes and a warm place to be and a warm meal to eat right now. Let this food nourish our bodies and strengthen our bodies that we may go out into the world and do good through you. We ask that you be with our Rotarians who are not with us today. Bring them back here safely and be with them, comfort them, heal them. Just wrap your arms around their heart, dear Lord. We ask that you be with our fellow Rotarian speaker today, Henry, as he shares his time and his talent with us. We ask that you be with those who are hurting, who are sick, who just need that extra love from you, dear Lord. Please let us leave this place and go out and do good. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Meredith. You may be seated. Andy Shane is on his way up to introduce our visiting Rotarians and guests. As he's walking up, I'll remind you about two buckets sitting on your table. One, the cart bucket, and secondly, there's a basket on the table with looks like stars or it's decorated for Christmas. That is for the Seawell staff and our annual tip money for them.
And I also have some ballots for the board of directors, so if you raise your hand as I come around, I'll be happy to deliver one as well. So today we have one visiting Rotarian. Please welcome Jim Hudson, a member of the East Columbia Club. And do we have some guests today that folks would like to introduce?
Hi, I'm Michael Kahn, and this young man with me has followed the love of his life to Columbia. This is Gray Cabot, and he's looking for a job now in the IT area. Gray Cabot.
Alrighty, I'm Craig Witherspoon. Have as our guest Mr. Ed Carlin, who is the Chief Operations and Budget, Chief of Operations and Budget for Regional School District 1. Ed Carlin.
My name is Leo Richardson, and I have with me today a very distinguished gentleman. He's an author, and he is basically nationally known as a author of John F. Kennedy. And hopefully you will see him again in some of our other meetings. Thank you so much.
Well, welcome to all our visitors.
And I've got two guests.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. My lovely wife and co-publisher and best friend, Emily, and my oldest daughter, Margaret, who's editor of the magazine.
Welcome to our visiting Rotarians and guests. It's good to have a good crowd here today. I'm happy to have Wayne Cannon back at the podium. Wayne is going to offer our health and happiness for us.
He's even taller than me. Okay. Isn't it great to be able to be right here today? And you know, this is the most wonderful time of the year. Christmas is right around the corner. Everybody's excited about this time of the year. So many great things. Family getting together as we go through the week here, the next few weeks. We one of the things that I think we don't appreciate enough or show enough appreciation for is the job that our president has been doing this year, and I'd like to just take the opportunity on part of the club to thank Stephen for the great job he's doing. We're halfway through the year, another week, and I'm ready for that, but so we really appreciate the job that you're doing. Thank you so much. We have some information of importance to the club. Jack Sloan, who is a past member of the club, has been very sick, but he's on the mend and doing a lot better. Harry Jeffcoat had foot surgery, and he's recovering nicely. He just can't walk. And Edward Davis' wife has been going through chemotherapy, and she is stable and still going through therapy, but she's doing well, and that seems to be at least holding. That's all the information I have about the members. I would like to say that I know y'all will be disappointed if I didn't say something about the magazine, and I don't want to disappoint you, so. And I have a prize if anybody can tell me. There's an article in there about who is going to be the next Rotarian President International. Anybody can tell me two things. I need his name and what he does for a living, what his classification is. Anybody have any idea? Well, good. I can save the book the next time. His name is Sushil. You can pronounce that however you want. That's his first name. Shahil Gupta. He was the sage from India. And he is in the business of hotels. He has quite a resume. I recommend you read it and find out who's going to be leading internationally. It's really great. And, you know, there's an article in here about how to play Texas Hold'em. Anybody know what Texas Hold'em is? All you gamblers out there, it's some kind of poker game. I found it fascinating why you would have an article about Texas Hold'em in Rotary magazine, but anyway, it is. So if you want to know how to play Texas Hold'em, I'd recommend it for you. The Sandlappers are going to be singing. Audrey asked me to make this. They will be singing Friday night at St. Peter's on downtown, St. Peter's Catholic. And on Saturday night, they're going to be at Virginia Wingard United Memorial Methodist Church, which is on Broad River Road. If any of you have an opportunity, I'm sure she'd be glad for you to attend. They're a very great group and do a super job. I'd like to spend just a minute to you, and like last time, I'd like to talk about some of the history of South Carolina. I'm really fascinated with it. I'd like to tell you about, anybody know who the first poet laureate was for the state of South Carolina? Who? Archibald Rutledge, correct. He was born in Hampton, in McClellanville in 1883, and had quite a career. He has been published over 100 different articles and magazines and books. He was twice nominated for the Pulitzer Prize in literature. He has over somewhere between 16 and 20 honorary degrees from colleges and universities. One article I read said 16, the other one said 20, so take your pick. I think 20 is good. Anyway, he was nicknamed Flintlock. He wrote a lot of articles about nature and about hunting in South Carolina. And one of the reasons I'd like to talk about him was that I grew up in Myrtle Beach, and his home was Hampton, which is right on the other side of Georgetown. When I was in the 10th grade, at age 15 or whatever it was in the end of 10th grade, we had an opportunity to do a trip down to his house, a day trip, you know, and I didn't know what a poet laureate was, and I never heard of Archibald Rutledge, but man, we were getting out of class for a day, and that was the best thing going. We didn't have to go to class, so we went down, and I got off the bus. There was this kind of a gaunt-looking fellow there. He wasn't very tall, and he had Bermuda shorts on, brogan boots, and a hat. Wasn't very impressive looking, but man, he got up and talked to us. And when he got to talk to us, he made one point that, you know, in life, you have certain incidences that occur that at the time it's occurring, you don't realize what influence it'll have on your life till maybe months or years later. But he made one point at the end of his talk that stuck with me, and I'd like to share it with you. He said, seek your passion. Find your passion. Love your passion. Grow your passion. And grow with your passion. And you probably say, man, that was a long time ago. Can't you remember all that? Well, when we got back, the next day we had to write a paper about what we'd learned the day before. And so we all had to write papers, and we all got A's on it. I didn't know that until later, but one of the few A's I ever made in English anyway. I'd like to share with you one of his poems that he wrote that I enjoyed, and I'd like to share this with you. The title of the poem is The Jasmine and the Pine. In the home woods at Hampton, I remember, out of a thicket of holly and of bay, towered a lowly pine. He climbed the blue magnificently, in his strength superb. And to his might there clung, with clambering grace, a delicate jasmine, frail and feminine. She wrapped him tenderly, and thus arose until the two seemed one. His power sustained her, while he with beauty was adorned. It seemed to be his own, but really was of her. Now many years have gone, the great pine again I see, the vine still binding him. A storm has shown his crest. Forlorn he stands, a ruined champion, pregnant and sad. But now supporting, clinging close, upholding his failing strength, the jasmine beauty climbs, as if to shield from foes his impotence. For often proudest power sustained by frailest love, and crashes gloomily, if ever once that tender comfort fails. Whenever I see the jasmine and the pine, they make me think of husband and wife. Archibald Hampton Rutledge, poet laureate for 39 years for South Carolina, and had a great influence on the literature in our state for many years. Hope y'all have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate all the time and energy you put into your health and happiness, and I'm glad to say I've now got a copy of your book from the last award you gave out. Ann Walker finished it and gave it to me, so now it's my turn to read it. I'd like to have Doug Cochran come up and talk to you for a second about the bell ringing campaign. And when he's on his way, I'll tell you, Saturday was my day at the Piggly Wiggly. And we filled all the shifts, and every shift that we filled, it was cold and wet, obviously, but we had a child there. Whether friends of mine, my niece, somebody was there the whole time with a child from 10 in the morning till 8 p.m. And nothing entices the giving quite like seeing a little child out there wearing the Rotary apron and standing in the cold. You know, that really brings the spirit out in people, so we collected a lot of money. Doug?
Thank you, President Stephen. I didn't realize we were exploiting children. But it's for the greater good, right? Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all are getting all ready for the holidays, and I just want to give you a quick report on how we're doing with our Salvation Army bell ringing campaign. We're into our last week. Our last day will be, I think, next Tuesday. So everything's going very, very well. I want to thank everyone who has signed up. I want to thank everyone who has already rang the bell, and I feel bad about the folks that have been caught in the rain and the cold lately, and they let me know about it too. So I apologize for that. We still have a couple of slots left. If you desire to sign up and you haven't done so yet, I'll be right outside right after the meeting. We have probably about a dozen, maybe 15 more 1-hour slots available to be filled. So if you haven't signed up yet, or you're not comfortable signing up online, I'll be happy to do that manually right outside in the hallway. I appreciate all your support. Many thanks to the day captains or kettle captains who have done some amazing work to get the schedule filled and get everyone out to do that. Everyone has reported so far that the buckets have been full of money so far, so that's a good thing. And we'll report later on how all that went. I appreciate your help. Thank you. Happy holiday.
I'm going to ask Past President Michael Kahn to come forward now. We've got a special induction today where we're going to be inducting 3 new members, which is always a great day for our club. We've done an induction pretty much every month so far this Rotary year, and it's going well. So, Michael? Good.
Thank you, President Stephen. And I'd like to call forward Rita Patel and her sponsor, Matt Kennel, Bill Edmonds, sponsored by Hal Stevenson, and Cheryl Swanson, sponsored by Libby Gover. You guys will come forward. I'll tell you a little bit about these folks, and once I call your name, if you would turn and face the club, maybe take a step forward so people might recognize you. First, a friend of mine who lives right here in Columbia gave his wife the anniversary gift this past weekend of several special meals and events right here in downtown Columbia. It was to be capped off by a night's stay at the city's new and only independently owned boutique hotel, Hotel Trundle. He raved about Hotel Trundle, and Columbia Rotary now is lucky to have Trundle's owner joining our club, Rita Patel. Rita, sponsored by Matt Kennel, is married to her business partner, Marcus Munsey, and they share the interesting background of that most honorable profession, architecture. When asked how an architectural background helped them develop and operate a hotel, she noted that aside from the obvious kind of assistance that the training gave them as far as reading plans and making sure the contractors were following them, she says it's given them an appreciation for historic buildings and architectural detail, and the ability to communicate that kind of vision and design elements to the markets that they're pursuing. Rita and Marcus live on Giger Avenue in the Elmwood section of Columbia, and their household is all about their 2 kids, both under 5 years old. Though raised in Orangeburg, Rita herself has family all over the U.S. Atlanta, New York City, L.A., and this sort of dispersed family, along with her hotel business, is allowing Rita's family to see the world. With degrees from University of Georgia and UNCC in interiors and architecture, Rita still enjoys the artistic hobby of watercoloring, especially for family gifts, invitations, announcements, that sort of thing. Everyone help me welcome Rita Patel to the club. And now, Bill Edmonds. You may already know Bill, sponsored by Hal Stevenson from his time in our club around 2008 to 14. If you don't know, here's a little bit about him. Bill is married to Becky, and they live with their 2 teenagers in Kings Grant. He's self-employed as the head of the Alternative Board and is also owner of North Star Leadership Solutions. Having received a bachelor's degree from USC, Bill has worked with such notable companies as Merrill Lynch and served on such well-recognized civic boards as the Cooperative Ministry and the boards of Sandhills Academy and Anderson University. Bill enjoys public speaking, but moreover, folks, we have, in keeping with our very literary program today and Wayne's comments, we have a real live author with us today. Aside from his weekly blog, Bill is in the throes of publishing his first book. So welcome, Bill Edmonds, to Columbia Rotary. And we welcome now Cheryl Stevenson, sponsored by Libby Gover. Cheryl, who is married to Tim Swanson, lives on Sunningdale Court in the Lexington area. They have a Chihuahua and 3 children, and already 2.5 grandchildren.
Well, by now it's 3. It took a while for my induction.
Oh, well, where was the child born?
Michigan.
Oh, well, I hope you get a good trip out of this, Michigan. Okay, Cheryl has passed Rotary service. Guess where? No. No. No, unless you guessed Sioux City, Iowa Downtown Club, which you almost never guess. You missed it. After being educated at Eastern Michigan, Briarcliff, and University of South Dakota in fields like nursing, interdisciplinary technology, healthcare administration, and after working about 15 years as a healthcare administrator, she's transitioned to Arena Stadium Convention Center management. And that's how she came to be in Columbia, where she's the vice president and general manager for the Columbia Convention Center. That's bound to be an interesting transition story about which you won't ask Cheryl. Cheryl has been involved civically with Chambers of Commerce, American Cancer Society, and Alzheimer's Association, which is an interest which Rotarians certainly share, Cheryl. And like Rita, Cheryl enjoys painting and traveling, as well as baking, golf, and reading. Cheryl, we're certainly glad to have you here as part of Columbia Rotary. And now if I could get you to turn and face me for just 1 second. These pens, by the way, are great conversation openers. They're recognized more broadly than you might think. And they're such a fashion statement. Many Rotarians will put one on each suit they own. Therefore, Hal, I think, maybe has two. Maybe one. Maybe one. We welcome you guys all to Rotary International and to the Columbia Rotary Club especially. You're joining a global force of 1.2 million Rotarians. They're engaged worldwide in projects as big as the eradication of polio or as intimate as eradicating hunger right here in the Midlands. Many of the Midlands key leaders are part of this club, and your leadership and service gifts have been recognized, and that's really why you're here. And I want to challenge you and invite you to engage those services, to be involved on the committee, and to share your knowledge and your ideas with this club. On your road to this moment, you've learned some key facts about this club from those people that are sponsoring you today, from your visits to the club, from your past, present, conversations, etc. What's left now will be to pay your invoice and to attend a fireside chat, which will be upcoming soon. Your president will keep you clued in on that. And at that point, you'll be an official member of one of the greatest organizations in the world. Welcome to Columbia Rotary and Rotary International.
Rita, Bill, Cheryl, it's great to have you in the club. Our next fireside chat is actually going to be on January 28th, so please put that on your calendars. It will be in Kings Grant, either at my house or at the neighborhood clubhouse, and you'll learn a lot more about Rotary and a lot more about the club at that. We have a special guest here today, a visiting Rotarian who was not introduced earlier, and our district's very own Assistant Governor, Eric Davis, and he's here to make a special presentation.
Thank you very much. One of the best things I get to do as your assistant governor is to come and tell you how awesome you are. And that's what I'm here to do today. First, we'd like to make a special presentation to a particular Rotarian in your club. Would Mr. Steve Bryant come up to this podium? Steve has recently become a member of the Paul Harris Society, which for you new folks that just got inducted means that he has made the commitment to give $1,000 per year to the Rotary Foundation. As you know, the Rotary Foundation is one of the most important things we do as Rotarians. And this club is one of the best clubs there is at supporting the foundation. Did you give Steve the certificate?
I did. I did.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right, Steve, thanks.
Yeah, congratulations.
But as they say on those cheesy product commercials, but wait, there's more. I have here today for you a banner that is awarded to you for your performance in giving to the foundation last year as a club. You know, I know you guys know that you give a lot to the foundation, but what you may not know is that you're one of the best clubs in the world. Okay, there is a very small percentage of clubs that get both of the awards that I'm about to give you. This is one. I have one more. Less than 4,000 clubs in the world got both of these awards. So you did a fantastic job. And I just want to say that you have plenty of wall space up here for more banners. Okay, so try to do the same thing this year. This banner is for 100% participation in the foundation by every member of the club, and each member gave $100 to the foundation. Thank you very much. The second award is another banner. It's similar, but this is for 100% participation in foundation and all its programs, including polio and so forth. And you gave at least $100 per member to all of the foundation programs put together. Thank you very much.
I'm just the foundation chair for this year. Robin Gorman deserves all the accolades for last year's contributing in both of these banners. Thank you so much for your service last year.
I got a scoop. I have a plane to catch. Thank you very much for having me today.
You're always welcome as our assistant governor and also as our past member of this club. We're always glad to see you. Thank you, Mason. Thank you, Robin, for accepting the awards on our behalf. A couple of quick announcements from me, and then we'll turn it over to our program. If you have any ballots still outstanding, please raise your hands, and if I can ask Jack Hupp to get them. I think everybody's turned them in. Great. Let's get those turned in. The newly elected board we will announce in a little while. We're going to meet immediately after the meeting on the table over here closest to the piano to elect officers for next year. Please don't forget the Seawell staff if you're not going to be here next week. We're going to do a collection today and next week for them, for all they do for us. Just tips for the year of service they give to us. Please remember them with the baskets on your table. Now I'd like to introduce Margaret Clarkson, who's going to introduce our speaker today.
For those of you who don't know this, there's a very deep little crevice down here between these little ledges, and if I suddenly disappear, it's because the tables have separated on me, so I'm going to try to step up here a little bit. I was very tickled when Louisa Campbell asked me to introduce Henry, because not only is he my neighbor, but he was my neighbor's, my mom and dad's neighbor, which was very, very sweet for a long time. But I was able to learn things about him, even though he and Emily live across the street from us. There are things that you just don't know about him, and even though he's very involved with our Rotary, I think his bio will give you a little bit of a background, and you can ask him about it. He's had a lot of adventures, and I think we can be tickled to hear him. So he is originally from Shreveport, Louisiana. He was born with ink in his veins. He grew up in a family that was in the newspaper and TV, radio, broadcast business in northern Louisiana and Arkansas. He graduated from Washington Lee University in 1982. Shortly after graduation, Henry began to work in New Orleans with Louisiana Life magazine as an advertising sales rep, and then later became a circulation manager. After several years in New Orleans, he and Emily, his wife, moved to Wellington, New Zealand. I'm amazed he ever came back, and started to work on a startup magazine called North and South in New Zealand. In 1987, Henry became a business partner with Augusta Magazine in Augusta, Georgia, and in 1990, they decided to expand operations in the Columbia area. Henry and his family moved here that same year, and Emily, as co-publisher, started Columbia Metropolitan magazine. In 1984, Henry and his partners sold the Augusta magazine to Morris Communications, and in 1998, he became the sole owner of Columbia Metropolitan magazine through Clay Publishing. Over the years, Clay Publishing has published other titles such as South Carolina Golf Guide, the Chamber of Commerce, the CVB publications, as well as publications for South Carolina Manufacturing Alliance. Henry and Emily have 3 daughters, Margaret, Mary, who used to babysit for my little girl, and Helen. Margaret is currently the editor of the Columbia Metropolitan, and Mary and Helen have also worked at the magazine. He's a member of the First Pres Church, a past board member of the United Way of the Midlands, the Indian Waters Council of the Boy Scouts, Adventure Children's Museum, and Providence Home. Henry currently serves on the Central Carolina Community Foundation Board and our Rotary Board. And on a side note, Henry, because he lived across the street from my dad, wrote a book where he was retracing his father's steps in the Navy when he was in World War II. And used to go and spend a lot of time with my daddy in his study, and I'm sure there was no wine drunk in those meetings. And I just want to say, Henry's put magazines on your tables. That's a November issue, so tease yourself. The Christmas issue is absolutely awesome, which happens to be in my hand. So, no further ado, Henry Clay.
Well, we didn't drink wine, but we had some great single malt Scotch. It's a great pleasure. Great pleasure to be here today and an honor, and I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about Columbia Metropolitan Magazine. When I was preparing for this, I couldn't help but reminisce about way back when Emily and I moved over here, and there were 2 experiences that really stand out to me that I've got to share with you that formed some of my initial impressions about Columbia. And the first happened on the very first day that I drove into Columbia with my former business partner, Jerry Rogers. We were coming up from Augusta. We were coming down I-126 and crossed the Broad River there, the bridge right before you get to UG and Elmwood. And I looked down at that beautiful river and this whitewater river running through the city. I was like, wow, that's really cool. I mean, you just don't see that in most cities, or any city for that matter. And then I looked up, and flying across the bridge was an osprey with, clutching in its talons, a rainbow trout. And I thought, wow, you really don't see that. What a wonderful resource, natural resource that this city has. And it's great to see that it's being used by the city now. And I think it's going to happen more and more. But I finally look back on that as just as a memory of a good omen about moving here. The second experience happened several months later after Emily and I had moved up here, and some nice folks invited us to a cocktail party, and we were going to have to arrive separately because I was coming in from out of town. And so I was driving down the street, and I was looking for the house with the address because I'd never been there before, and I looked up ahead and I saw all these cars pulled off on the side and people getting out going in the house. I said, oh, thought to myself, it must be where the party is. So I pulled up behind and got out and walked into the house, and I'm looking around. I don't recognize anybody. Of course, I'm new to Columbia, so I didn't expect to recognize anybody. And I thought, well, where's the host and hostess? I know them, I don't see them. And I look around and I was like, where's Emily? I don't see her. And about that time, the front door opens, and this nice, attractive young couple walks in, and everybody goes, yay, and they're clapping, and this guy pulls out this old, camcorder VHS type thing, and he's filming them, and I'm thinking, I know I'm in the wrong place now. And so he's filming them, and he's filming all their friends. He gets to me, and he stops. And he's still filming. And I'm looking at him like a deer in the headlights. He says, who are you? And he's still filming. I said, well, I'm Henry Clay. Isn't this so-and-so's house? And he dies laughing. He said, no, they're next door. He said, but you can stay here if you want to and party with us. And as he's still filming me, I said, no, I think I'll be leaving. So I tucked my tail and headed out the door, and he's still filming me. Everybody's laughing. And so after, I was mortally embarrassed, but at the same time I was thinking, what Columbia is a great place. I mean, it's there are a lot of fun people here. They like to have a good time. I think I'm going to love it here. This reminds me of the folks back in my native state, Louisiana, where every day is a holiday and every night's a celebration. So I think I'm going to love it here. And I can tell you, after almost 3 decades of living here, Columbia has been a wonderful place. It's a great place to start a business. It's a great place to raise a family. It's just a great place to live, and I just feel very fortunate to be here. And I'd like to start off by giving you a little general overview of what city magazines are all about and the market niche that they occupy, and then go into some specifics about Columbia Metropolitan. Although some city magazines have been around for over 60 years, they really got going in the 1970s. And that was, and they started in some of the major markets and then progressively expand to some of the medium and smaller markets. And that was primarily because there were some advances in the 4-color printing process, which lowered the break-even point to a spot where people, entrepreneurs, thought they might be able to make a go of it. And the cost of starting before that was really prohibitive. It's still costly today, but it's because of distribution costs and printing costs, which are still high, but it has lowered to a certain degree. Before city magazines came along, the only print available on a local basis for readers and businesses was the newspaper. City magazines have never really competed with newspapers because the newspapers are in a different business. And back then they had quite a monopoly on their given areas, but at least city magazines gave an option to local advertisers and gave them a higher quality of print reproduction. As far as readers were concerned, city magazines and newspapers definitely didn't compete because the products are so different. Newspapers are primarily distributions of timely, daily, local news, and city magazines are generally more in-depth, lifestyle-oriented, and they're not timely at all. That's still primarily the case today in regards to the print products, but some city magazines are starting to give daily news through the internet. The digital revolution has disrupted the media world in numerous ways, but probably not so drastically as it has with print. By and large, digital has been a benefit to city magazines. It's given city magazines the opportunity to offer more products to our advertisers and more ways to engage and interact with our readers and our audience through websites, social media, and email newsletters. It has also given local businesses more opportunities to market their customers and prospects, and has taken away the dominance and control the newspapers once had. On the flip side, the digital revolution has drastically lowered the cost of entry to the magazine business, more so than before back in the 70s, and has therefore created more competition. Lower costs primarily have come from the reductions in design and pre-press costs. The paper, print, and distribution are still pretty high, so new startups still need to be well capitalized in order until they can make sustained profit. You may have heard that print is dead, but so far that exaggeration has not come to pass. In some areas, print is indeed having major struggles to survive, but it's not across the board. In fact, several new print magazines started as web enterprises, such as Airbnb, Politico, and Huffington Post. These internet companies started print versions to complement and enhance their digital products. There are over 7,000 magazines in the U.S., and the top 25 reach more adults and teens than the top 25 prime TV shows. City magazines are also doing pretty well across the country. We belong to the City Regional Magazine Association, which has 78 members across the country, and just about all of them are experiencing sustained net revenue growth year over year. The city magazine niche is geographical and product oriented. They usually cover a city's metropolitan statistical area, such as in our case, the 4-county region around Columbia. They also distinguish themselves through the product itself. For the most part, they produce relevant articles that are well written with top-notch photography, using clean, eye-appealing design and printed on high-quality glossy paper. This formula works especially well in the digital era because it's a nice departure from staring at a screen all day, which most of us do. Human beings are very tactile. We like to hold things. A whole different experience takes place when someone sits down and reads a magazine as opposed to reading an electronic device. For one thing, it's non-interruptive or distracting. Studies have proven that a magazine reader is more engaged with the subject they're reading about than in any other medium. Some have expressed it as the difference between a lean back and a lean to experience. Magazines are lean back, where the person is relaxed, focused, and engaged, perhaps curled up on a couch or in a favorite chair. Because of this, they retain more of what they have read. You might say, well, that might be true for anyone older than 25. What about the next generation, the younger generation that has never known time without digital product? My answer to that is, that's my daughter's problem. Actually, the fastest growing demographics for magazine readers are young women in their 20s. So I think magazines are going to be with us for quite some time. Columbia Metropolitan began as an expansion of Augusta Magazine back in 1989 with our primary issue launching in 1990. At the time, we looked at several cities to start another publication and chose Columbia for several reasons. It has a stable economy with the state government, State University of Forest Jackson as its base. Its future looked bright, and it's close to Augusta, which in those early years was important. The city of Columbia has definitely lived up to our expectations over almost 3 decades. When we first were here in 1990, the population was 470,000, and it's over 800,000 today. The growth has been steady without the wild boom and bust gyrations that some cities have. Since the 2008 financial crisis and recession, Columbia, I feel, has shifted into a new gear. The expansion of USC's enrollment and the resulting physical growth of buildings, downtown apartments, restaurants, and retail has infused new life into the city. Columbia Metropolitan started as a quarterly, and over the years we gradually added frequency. Today we are monthly, except for the months of February and August. We could run issues on those months too, but this allows us to have a little bit of a break and a chance to rejuvenate. The first 4 years were touch and go. We struggled to survive, but thanks to a handful of city leaders at the time, Joe Anderson, who was running Bell South, a primary one, and Cameron Todd, Merrill Lynch, another, advertising sales grew and we turned the corner. I have to tell you that the Lord has had his hand in this from the beginning. There's no reason why we survived those early days, or the Great Recession for that matter, from a purely human perspective. Our main mission is to serve him through every aspect of the magazine. We're a family-run, mom and pop business. For 14 years, the office was next door to our home. And when our children were really young, this allowed Emily and me to go back and forth, taking care of our baby business and our real baby. Our girls grew up with Columbia Metropolitan and worked there in various capacities the older they became. From Xeroxing their hands and their faces, making their own magazine, to my oldest, Margaret, becoming editor today. They have been a big part of the development of the business. We also have a small regular staff of 10 that have been with us for a long time. And then we have 10 or 12 more who freelance, and we consider them all family. In 2015, we did a big redesign of the magazine. And in essence, we relaunched it. We decided to invest more in the product itself. We moved to a larger trim size. We freshened up the layouts with bigger and longer spreads, more photography, and cleaner design. We expanded our editorial to include more of the state and its people. We still primarily focus on Columbia and the metro area, but we also include stories from around South Carolina that we think our readers will enjoy. Great photography is a big driver in what we do, and it's a competitive advantage we strive to stay on top of. Readers love excellent photography, but it also has to be printed on high-quality paper and used in a clean layout without a lot of distraction competing for the reader's attention. We're fortunate to have Jeff Amberg and Robert Clark contribute their amazing photography in every issue since we began the magazine. When you get right down to it, we're storytellers. There is something in the core of every human being that loves a good story. We grow up with stories being told or read to us by our parents. We love movies, plays, musicals, and TV shows. And we all love to read books. At Columbia Metropolitan, we want to tell you interesting stories about where you live and the incredibly interesting people, businesses, charitable organizations, food, homes, and gardens, and much more that are all part of Columbia, Lexington, and our state. Over the years, I've heard a lot of negative things about Columbia, not so much today, but definitely when we moved here, and I never understood this. As I said before, Columbia is a wonderful place to live, work, and raise a family, and we try to reflect that in the pages of the magazine. Each issue is comprised of certain elements we've discovered over the years people enjoy the most. The first few pages of editorial are devoted to what we call minis. Short one-page pieces that cover a wide spectrum of interest. We always have a book review as one of these minis, but the rest could be anything from an article on a certain wild animal by Satch Krantz, former director of the Riverbank Zoo, to an article on oyster knives, or one about how to put greenery on your door for Christmas. The magazine then moves on to longer columns that aren't features, but deserve more space in one page. I always try to have one that is about an organization or person who is giving back to the community. These are the ones I like the most, because I'm always astonished at the number and level of these efforts and the people behind them. Publishing a city magazine has given us a unique perspective on Columbia and its residents. After 28 plus years of publishing, we never run out of these stories. I don't know about other cities, but I can attest to the fact that Columbia is chock full of giving people who truly care about their neighborhood. A great example of this was the community response to the 2015 flood, which was remarkable, but giving in Columbia of time, money, and elbow grease never stops, and that makes me very thankful for where I live. Another standard column we run on a regular basis is Made in Colatown. These articles are about Columbians, or former Columbians, who have made a name for themselves on a national basis. People such as Ainsley Earhart, Craig Melvin, Eleanor Beardsley, Anna Kent, and many more. The content of the magazine moves into the feature well, which is a real showcase for each issue. Each feature runs anywhere from 6 to 8 pages, uninterrupted, without any advertising, and we generally run 3 features per issue. This is the area of the magazine where the photography, writing, and design put on their best show. After the feature well, a home showcase follows with another 6 pages of uninterrupted editorial and photography. So every issue will have anywhere from 24 to 30 pages of pure editorial and photography with no ads. This is not the most cost-efficient way to to publish a magazine, but we feel it's worth the investment because it enhances the product and gives the reader a better experience. A better reading experience results in a more engaged reader, which in turn creates a more receptive consumer for our advertisers. The rest of the magazine consists of more home and garden articles, which are generally how-to pieces, and then moves on to a column on a local business or business person. We end each issue with special advertising profiles, generally dealing with professional industries such as attorneys, doctors, or dentists. The last page is called Etc., which is an interesting aside relating back to one of the stories. We get asked many times on how we choose the cover shot. Sometimes it's easy and a no-brainer because the shot just works so well. Other times it's quite difficult. We stew over it, and finally, we're at our wits' end, we make a decision. I like to run through a few covers from over the years, take you back in the past and let you see how it's changed a little bit. Okay. All right, that's our very first issue. That's the premier issue, and you can tell we haven't really developed the logo quite yet. But That was primarily put together down in Augusta, and that came out in June of 1990. That's the second issue. You can tell things have changed a bit. Getting those two guys together was one of the hardest things we ever did in the magazine. But Ken Hatfield, Sparky Woods, but they got together for us and allowed us to take that picture. And, that was a fun event. I guess you know who these guys are. And that was the first magazine story and cover that they'd ever been on. That was a lot of fun. That's cover, I can't see what year that is, maybe 2004 or something, but that it shows the Dream Home, which is an event we do that we've done maybe 10 of these where we partner with a builder to build a house, and then we have it decorated by interior designers, and it was open for showing for 2 weeks, 3 weekends, and the proceeds all go to a charity. For a long time it was Habitat for Humanity, and we raised enough over several of these to, and partnering with Coldwell Banker, we actually built a house for someone, which was very rewarding. This was 2011, and that was a great experience for the city. I had to put that shot in there because my daughter Mary took it, and so it's just another example of mom and pop business. Craig Melvin, that's Granger McCoy. He's an interesting character. He's not from Columbia, but he's part of South Carolina, and interesting story behind him. And these are some more recent issues. That's our September one. And here again, this is dealing with interest that people have in Columbia, saltwater fly fishing. And then that's the November issue, which is on your table. And that's our current issue. Editorial team sits down once a year in the early fall and maps out the general schedule for the next year. Some issues have a special focus, such as the announcement of our Best of Columbia winners in the January-February issue, and we also have 2 issues that specialize in weddings. We do try to strike a balance with our content. We always ask questions, do we have good female-male balance for the topics? Do we have things that will interest millennials, the baby boomers? We always say that Columbia Metropolitan is about 3 things: people, people, and people. So featuring amazing local individuals who have stories that will connect with our readers is the heartbeat of the magazine. We print 20,000 copies per issue with a pass-along readership of 5 readers per copy. So our total readership audience is somewhere around 100,000 per issue. Our circulation is a combination of subscriptions, direct mail, newsstand sales, and high-traffic locations such as doctors' waiting rooms. We're audited by an independent third-party firm that specializes in magazine circulation. So who are our readers? Besides living in our metro area, they're primarily women, 62%. 70% fall in the age range of 35 to 65. And they're well-educated and have disposable income. 70% of our readers frequently buy products or services from advertisers in Columbia Metropolitan. Advertising is the lifeblood of Columbia Metropolitan, and it's what provides the pages and editorial space. And magazine advertising works because it connects. As mentioned before, physical magazine engages more of the human senses than other media, imprinting itself on the reader and driving recall. Average time spent reading an issue of Columbia Metropolitan is 43 minutes. I'd like to end and conclude with just letting you know how important Rotary has been for us. It's been a big part of Columbia Metropolitan. We've gotten scores of article ideas from the multitude of speakers, and it's been a great venue to meet other people in the business community, nonprofit organizations, and just to stay in touch with the heartbeat of our great city. And I thank you for your time. And if anybody has a question, be happy to. Any questions, just come see me later. Thank you.
Henry, thank you for all the time you put into that. I've had the privilege of serving on the board with you for a couple of years now. And, you know, sometimes I think you have a quiet demeanor, but whenever I need something done, I just ask, and Henry's one of the first people to raise his hand. For example, we need a place to put the guy from the outreach program when we did the food packing project. And Henry said, let me make a call. I know somebody over at Embassy Suites. And next thing you know, we got a free night donated for that person to help keep their costs down. So you do a lot behind the scenes. And as Wayne was talking earlier about Archibald Rutledge and his wisdom, you know, you really have found your passion, your career in publishing. We thank you for all you do. Here's a small token of our appreciation for you being here. Now I'd like to invite up President-elect Louisa to announce the 2019-2020 Rotary Board, as well as next week's program.
Well, first of all, before I announce the 7, I want you to know that this group of 14 are absolute fantastic leaders. Every single one of them. I was so excited last week when I saw the list and I thought, I'm going to have a great board. So I'm going to tell the 7 that congratulations, but the other 7, I want you to stay in touch and keep doing what you're doing because we need you. That's what makes this club so fantastic. There's so many of our members really want to be leadership and also help guide our board. So, all right. The 7 on our board for next year are Margaret Clarkson, Henry Clay, Doug Cothran, Catherine Davis, Mason Hardy, Adam Jordan, and Beth Howard. Great. Congratulations. And next week, our speaker will be Robert Sumwalt, who's a Columbia native, and he's chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board. So come with your questions. And I also want to announce that our sweet Audrey Brown, where she is, there she is, right in front of me, and her friend Dot Lackey will be providing some seasonal music for the club about a half an hour before the meeting. So please come, bring a friend, and enjoy. Thank you all. Have a great week.